Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of The Peripheral. A great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's pick up with the Tommy situation really quickly. It is just like I thought. I was like, man, Tommy put in the cover work, and he calls in everyone. It's like, oh, this been this whole thing that went down. The person who killed Corbell and his wife, and the sheriff is like, yep, he's out there, he's armed, he's dangerous. And what did I say last episode? I said that Tommy should have double tapped his ass, but he didn't. So it's like, cool, now Corbell's alive. Now that's an issue, because like if he wakes up, it undoes your entire cover-up. You're screwed in that department, but there's no guarantee he's going to wake up. Now, that's up to Tommy to decide whether or not, hey, I might have to go ahead and, like, nip that in the bud at some point in time. I don't know. With the way the episode goes, a lot of stuff in this episode comes up in the question, but we'll get to that later. So there's that angle to it, but at the same time, that's all going down. He hears about everything that went down at Dee Dee's work and everything with, Bob. And obviously he's been taken care of. So it's like, oh yeah, and once again the story is selling. It's like, oh my god, that guy, he also killed the sheriff, and Tommy's like, yeah, he did. So the cover is holding for now. At the same time that's all happening, Charisse finds out from Ash, because Ash let her know, hey, I need you to kill Lev. And the data you're looking for, it's all inside of Flynn's head. And I think it's so interesting because Charisse has always had this air of like, oh, I'm so in control, I'm so powerful. And in that moment, you saw that mask slip where she was almost concerned. She was scared. It's like, wait, what? Like, it's like, what data does she have? And it's like, the everything. So it's like, the last thing you want is that falling into anyone's hands. And that's for Ash, is like, the last thing I want is the Kleps to have their hands on it too. Once again, her whole point was like to give it to the Neoprims, like to bring in, usher in a new world. But she knows like the Kleps have kind of had their ways, the power, like people that they are. It's like they've run things for so long, they've done things their way. And the last thing you want is all of that power in one person's hands. So it's like, right. Well, not just one person, but just the entity that is the Kleps. It's like you don't want them to have that. So she's betting on Charisse to not only prevent them from getting it, but also it's like, I need you to kill Lev as well in the process. And Charisse is like, well, there's only one thing to do. All I can do is we're gonna have to nuke the stub. And for her, it's like, right. It's been decades of work that we put into it. It's going to have to go down the toilet, because it's the only way we can kill that entire family. Just going to have to nuke that town. We're just going to have to move up the jackpot, because originally her town, like, the silo explode, the missile silo blowing up is what destroys her town regardless, but it happens at a later point in the timeline. So it's like, right, well, we're aware of one of the jackpot incidents, so we need to utilize that in this case, just rush it up. And that's going to have, like, rushing that portion of the jackpot. Yes, the whole point was like they were going to expedite the jackpot in general in that timeline, in that stub, but now it's like we have to expedite it even more, because I need to just, no more like messing around. I need action now. We don't have time to like hire someone else just for them to bumble the job yet again, because the two people that got hired bumbled the job, whether it be Bob or whether it be Corbell Pickett. So she doesn't want to, but Charisse knows, like, she's like, I have to take these severe, drastic actions just to kind of make sure that data doesn't fall into anyone else's hands. So all the while that's happening, Burton, Connor, and Flynn are talking to Lowbeer, and it turns out that it's like, right, we got to kind of form an alliance considering everything that's going on, obviously with Charisse and everything, and this fight against her in the research institute. It is interesting, like, I mean, obviously we've seen kind of lower tier people, like, in the regards of, like, who lower on the totem pole of, like, the research institute. Like, we've never met any other higher ups. Like, she's, like, the tippity top of the pyramid. Like, I don't know if she's, like, the because maybe they said that before. I don't know if she's the head of the research institute, or is she just one of the figureheads? Not figurehead, but she's just one of the like many faces. But I feel like we just never seen. I guess everyone else just works under her, because I'm like, we haven't seen anyone of any equal value. Everyone else has just kind of been foot soldiers or kind of like grunt scientists, I guess. Like, we haven't seen anyone like even close to Charisse's power in the structure of the research institute. I'm curious, is there anyone even close power wise? It's just like, yeah, she's just been like the main antagonist, and like I don't know if there's anyone that's above her. It doesn't seem like it. Could you feel like that would probably come up at some point if that was the case? So it does seem like she's at the top of the totem pole, but also like I said, it feels like there's scientists in charge of. I don't know if there's anyone else division heads is kind of what I'm saying, like amongst like other stuff in the research institute. Because the most important thing right now that we focus on the most is the stub like technology and stuff like that. That's kind of been the main thing. Obviously, some other stuff from the research institute has kind of come up here and there, but the stub stuff ends up being kind of the central fold thing. But some of the other stuff is coming into that same purview as well. But Lowbeer's like, right, you get to make whatever demands you want, while this situation happens, and Flynn wants her mom to be saved, but the problem is everything Zeb did, not Zeb, Leb, I was combining like the Z from like his last name, regardless, the Lev and them, the medicine they gave her is the best they could do. And since it doesn't work, there's no other options. That she has, 554 hours to live. Me being me, I'm gonna let you know just how dorky I am. I had to pause it. I was like, oh, let me do the math for that really quickly. And I won't say I did it in my head. I'm not gonna pretend like I'm that good. It's like, no, I did it on a calculator on my phone. I was like, oh, okay, roughly about 23 days. And then I press play. And then Little Bear immediately says, approximately 23 days. I threw my hands up in the air. I was like, you fucking idiot. All you had to do was let it play out. They already did the math for you, you fucking idiot. Oh, I had to include that because I thought that was funny. It's like, if I just let it play out instead of trying to be like, ooh, what's the math on that? It's like, oh, you fucking dork. It's like, yeah, they did the math for you, you idiot. But it's like, yeah, that gives, like, for Flynn, it's like, no, because... And even Wolf apologizes later on. He knew that the solution was only a probability and not a certainty. And he apologizes for giving her this probability as a certainty. It was never a guarantee that it was going to work on her mom and her mom was going to be fine. And now it's like, right, like she held on to that hope. And now it's like, yeah, you're back to your mom having a timetable of less than a month. You got a little over 3 weeks left of your mom. That's rough, And obviously for Flynn, it's such a hard pill to swallow, and she's talking to her mom about it, and her mom had said, like, right, Flynn kind of put a lot of her life on hold just to take care of her mom, because not even just me, he's like, you took care of everything, and it's like, right, I hope, she's like, the moment I found out I was sick, I was laying there in the examination room thinking like, well, when it's all said and done, Flynn will be able to live her life now. And it's like, right, like, who will Flynn be? She's like, Burton will end up most likely being Burton, for better or for worse. Maybe you guys could sell the house, get some money from it. But it's like, who will Flynn be? And it's like telling her the story too, like, right, me and your dad called you Acorn when you were a baby just because you might be so small, but you have such strength in you that Acorn can grow into an oak tree. And for her, it's like, I want to know what kind of, like, there's no telling what kind of strong tree you'll grow into, using the metaphor, and it's sad. Then there's also the Jasper stuff, because he's always been seen as like, oh, Corbell's like runt nephew is all he ever was. So like, obviously the trio are like, oh, your uncle, he went down fighting. It's like, he's not dead yet. It's like, yeah, but you know what I mean. And it's like, right, we're going to decide who's going to be the next one in charge to kind of take over his operation. But it's like, the four of us, and they're like, oh, four, no, but you can wash the car, you can drive us around, I mean, because, oh my God, you do such a great job, and they're asking him just kind of take it, and at first Jasper is kind of taking it on the chin, but then it's like, he gets relegated to once again of like, oh, like, you're just this runt, You ain't nobody, because he's also like never been neck deep in that family business, but also like he was there. He's seen who his uncle is, and I think that was their folly too, because it's like, you idiots. Like, I think they underestimate Jasper because they don't, it's like, right, they are family, and he's seen who his uncle is, and a little bit of his uncle is in him. And in that moment, he's in the car. I was like, is he going to pull that thing where like he poisoned them, like he's going to suffocate them in the car, like his uncle did to those bikers? I thought that's what I was going to do. In fact, rolled up on a train track. I wasn't expecting that. And he called Billy in, and he told him, he said, remember that Monopoly game? I was like way ahead, but then I didn't want to crush like Flynn, Burton, and their mom. So I kind of, anytime someone needed money, I handed it out. And then Burton ended up winning. He went from nothing to winning. And you told me, I forgot what's the exact wording. Oh, you have a tendency kind of mistaking weakness for kindness. And she's like, at the time, she's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. She's like, no, you did mean it. And she's like, I was just, I just wanted you to win from once. It's kind of, you deserve to win. And he was just kind of like, right. Like, the reason why I married you is because you're so kind. And for him, he's like, right, I was about to make a big mistake. Sadly, he couldn't undo it because he left the keys in the car when he locked it. And it's like, cool, you idiots, wake up. Which is so interesting, but I guess it's like, maybe those vehicles are designed to do that. Because a lot of vehicles, I mean, I'm not a car person, so, but at least, I don't know. Because I know with some digital remotes, they won't lock unless, because they automatically sense like, oh, the key is in here. I mean, obviously, like, that's a very old school thing of like locking your key in the car. But I'm like, remote keys, I feel like that, once again, this is 2032. So, and those might be specifically designed to do that, or it might be a flaw. And I don't know, but I know just because like my mom has a vehicle that won't lock if it senses the keys in there type of situation. So I don't know if, like, is that as big of an issue? I'm not a car person. I don't like driving. I don't care about all that. So it just something I never really bother really knowing outside of that. If that's I know it's probably definitely still an issue if you have a very old car or something like that. But tangents and all that aside, I was like, that sucked. And yeah, the train hit the car and everyone died inside. So it's like, cool. You tried to do the right thing, and it's like, wow. So became a little, and I think for you, it's like, yeah, this is going to be something you're going to be carrying for a while, because it's like, cool, I didn't mean to do this, but I ended up I ended up following through and ended up becoming a lot more like my uncle than I was initially planning to. So that was really interesting. So you had that intimate moment between Wilf and Flynn. Well, first and foremost, just them talking and you kind of learning a little bit more about his history with Alita, and just like how, for him, he feels like time and time again, Alita had to make sacrifices for him, because he's like, he made the mistake of letting those idiots push him around and go like, oh, go check out this yada, yada, yada. Alita was telling him not to do it. Because of that, they ended up getting captured, because they were on their own, like on the streets, like on, like, after like London being, in the state that it was in, they were like on that street out there like that for like 3 years on their own after finding each other. And then ultimately, like, once again, it's that thing of, yes, Alita pushed to be like, hey, I'm not going to let you guys adopt me until you bring my brother Wilf with me. But then also Wilf going from like leaving behind his, because she doesn't call him Wilf either. She calls him Wolf, because it's like, I'm not going to call you by that name that you ended up abandoning your name, because he wanted to do that, because it's like, right, I'll do whatever it takes to stay near Alita. But Alita didn't want him to lose who he was along the way. Then we find out sometime later, like, she had been slowly keeping money on the side, resources on the side, and they ran away. They went to they made their own fort, and they were going for like 8 months. And I thought that was so interesting. It was like, their symbol was a hand without a thumb. And she's like, what was that all about? She's like, he said that it's a representation of kind of a paradise before humanity had the power to grip. I was like, my mind immediately went to like, oh, the biblical sense of like, because he even said like, before we could sin or something like that. I'm butchering it, but I was like, he referenced sin and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, okay, so you must be talking about like not being able to grip the apple from the Garden of Eden. But it's like, yes, from a biblical standpoint, but more so from a like just everyday like practical standpoint. It's like without thumbs, wouldn't be able to grip guns, wouldn't have been able to grip tools and weapons. And, so I thought that was such an interesting metaphor to kind of go for. And that being the symbol of their fort and everything. But Wilf got sick, and that's why Alita had to bring him back 8 months. It's like, once again, she sacrificed her freedom just to make sure I was okay. And that's why he's always felt this indebtedness to her. That is like he owes her, because time and time again she's had to sacrifice for him, because he's like, I wouldn't have survived without Alita on more than one occasion. She's always been like, I think in his mind, it's like she's always been the strong one, and the bare minimum. I should be able to do the bare minimum for her whenever she needs me. Because under his impression right now, it's like she's got to be dead. He's like, I haven't heard anything from her. I haven't seen anything from her. Plus, she took her implant out, and that means that her immunity's kind of going, so the sickness out there is probably spreading and got her. So he's like, since I haven't heard anything from her in all this time, she's got to be dead. That was kind of the assumption a lot of people already made the moment they found out she removed her implant. And Wilf wanted to tell Flint some stuff, but it's like, I don't know if I can quite find the words to say it, especially knowing they're being watched and stuff. So it's like, right, they linked up again, and she'll say something, and she'll interpret it based on how Wilf feels about it. And then it's like, she says her name, and then he says his name in response to her, just to see how she feels. So it's like, yeah, something is budding there. It kind of already was. So it's not even just it's not just a on Flynn thing, and it's not just on a Wilf thing. There's something there. But she's actually the one that helped him figure out where Alita was. It had to be at because he even said, he was like, right, there's something that's there, and it's got to be, it's so obvious, but like, I'm so in it right now that I have the inability to step back and see everything because I'm too close to it. And it's like, right, you kind of have a tendency to miss the most obvious thing in front of you, and it's like, right, it never crossed his mind like that, about that fort and everything. Because he had talked a little bit about his family too, his dad, his mom, that he has vague memories of someone that might have been his mom, but he's like, oh, that might be a fantasy. Well, goes and meets with Alita, and Alita tells him the battle plan. She talks, the fact is, the reason why she removed her implant, she's like, yeah, it's not just the immunity thing. This is about freedom, because they keep us under control, because the little bit that Wilf is remembering probably are real memories, but they're so buried, like the implant kept them so buried, so only like the smallest sliver of those memories were funneling to the surface. And Alita talks about, hey, this place right here, where those camps and temps were like back in the day, there are millions of bodies buried underneath this ground. It's like, this is where our parents are. People, Kleps, like Lev's father and stuff like that, their cohorts are the reason why our parents died. Because, hey, the sickness was spreading amongst the camps, and the Klep didn't want to take the chance that they might get sick. So to protect their own, to immunize themselves, they ended up wiping out all of us. She's like, 5 million in like under like a fortnight. She's like, that's got to be a record. So that's what this has all been about. It's like, right, like we've been kind of under, you're working with someone that basically helped kill your mom. Your mom is one of the bodies buried here. Like, the fact is that you went and kind of ended up working for the people who kind of helped like wipe us all out. And it's like, she's gathering others who are like her. I don't know if there are other survivors of that situation is who she's gathered, but it's like, right, this is like, you think this little runt team you're putting together is going to be enough to go up against like the Kleps or the Research Institute? And she's like, yes, but with the data, that's all the data that's in Flynn's head. And in that moment, Will's like, because now he's finding out about it, because obviously Lev wasn't going to tell him about, because that was going to be something between Ossie and him and Ash now. So, but at the same time that happened, Tommy lets Flynn know about, hey, there's this whole situation. There's like the Homeland Security or whatever is kind of warned about the attack on like the missile silo, and now she knows it's the jackpot. It's got to be Charisse like escalating things because she knows. So she goes to visit Ash, and it's like, wow, you sold us out. But it's like, right, we can't let the Kleps get their hands on it. And it's like, yeah. And she says that line of, we're nothing to you. The fact is, you could sit back and let her kill me, my entire family. She's going to kill everyone in my, like, town. she'll nuke that entire place, and you're just going to sit back because once again, it's just like you're just as bad as like Lev, because Lev is like, I don't care, it's a stub. It's like the people in the stub get viewed as something as up because it's like, right, for one, it's a timeline that doesn't matter because their history will always be the same. It's like, for one, you're people that are already long gone. Like Flynn is already long since dead in Ash's mind regardless. Plus you add in the fact is that it's also in a stub. So it also means even less, you know? So that's the thing of like, right, that's why the Research Institute's able to do what they did. Once again, Alita seeing the way Grace was kind of like, oh, who cares? Like, oh, you're so nice and stuff like that because you're caring about people that are long since gone, but also in a timeline in a stub that has nothing to do with you, you know, that has no effect on bearing on us. So they see them as experiments. You see us as less than people. And Flynn's like, I'm not going to take this lying down. So she goes to Lowbeer. In fact, she gets help from Lowbeer and Connor because she's got a plan because she's like, right, I'm going to win this. And so it ties into a conversation that her and Connor had at the very beginning of the episode, like while he was still in the hospital, it was 2028, about he thought the conversation about reboots in a sim, but sadly life isn't like that. Now Flynn's trying to, the moment that conversation came up, he's like, you're going for a reboot. I was like, that's wild, especially because technically you can get a reboot with the stubs, but then also like the reason why it also kind of made me go like, oh, the timing on that's really interesting. I mean, once again, I'm assuming this is something straight out of the book. Maybe not. Maybe they're playing loosey-goosey with some of the story from the book, but I don't know how like straight up of an adaptation this is. The book's from like 2014, but the reason why I'm bringing that all up, it's a slight spoiler, but it's also like who knows if anyone's going to watch Westworld at this point in time, just because it's like, hey, sadly the show got canceled. The fourth season, which the season finale of season 4, which kind of now is the series finale, spoiler, if you are curious, ended with them rebooting Westworld. That was going to be what the setup was going to be going into the final season of Westworld, was going to be like, hey, we're rebooting this and trying to change things for the better, like learning from our mistakes, and let's run this one more time to try and get things right. That one final test for humanity. And we're kind of getting a very similar thing in this case. Flynn is like, this is the only way. And she talks to Lowbeer about it. It's like, right, do you know how to sever a connection to a stub? And it's like, no. Do you know how to open one? And it's like, right, you doing this, it'll be a declaration of war. But Lowbeer's like, it is possible. So there are kind of stub facilities around that are heavily guarded by peripherals, and Flynn does her thing, and she ends up, you know, she ended up accessing one of the places, and obviously see Charisse is there to be like, oh, like, you do this, it doesn't matter, I'm gonna find you and kill you. It's like, yeah. Because it's like, you're taking quite the powerful gamble on this. And it's like, yeah, but you're not going to be able to find me because she's not going to know what Flynn has said. So it seems like we saw what year she chose, which I thought was kind of very interesting. She chose 2032. So we're going to be like stub 1 and stub 2. So she opened up a new stub to 2032, a very specific, so that's definitely going to be interesting because it's also supposed to be a stub. I don't know if that's like going to be like how that 100% correlates in, like, is that going to be like a stub of the original? Because this is supposed to be like a timeline they haven't touched yet. So I'm assuming this is supposed to be a stub of what this original timeline was supposed to be, because stub 1 has already been altered to shit by the Research Institute. They've been messing with it for decades. So this 2032 stub 2 is probably going to be closer to what to the past of Lev and them. Lev, Wolf, Alita, like their past in 2032. The new stub 2 is going to be closer to that, if not an exact copy of that, but obviously leaving room to kind of shift stuff around. So that's where we start getting to that point when the episode where I was like, I'm slightly confused by the ending in the regards of, I get the general concept, but there's some of the details I'm not quite sure I understand. Because Flynn was asking Connor to kill her, because it's like, right, if I'm dead in this stub will be left alone. Mom, Burton, all of them will at least be able to live what time is left, at least in her mom's case, because if I'm dead along with everything in my head, then there's no reason for Charisse to come after it. Once again, I stressed the point earlier on. Charisse won't want to destroy the stub 1, because they've already dedicated so much time to it. And it's like, right, if the one factor that was the reason why you were going so ham in the first place is now removed from the board, the chessboard, then you have no reason not to continue playing your game. So that's what Flynn was hoping for. But the thing is, the details I'm kind of slippery on is like, I don't know if this is implying that 2032 Flynn like copied a version of herself into, stub 1 Flynn, she maybe copied a version of herself into a new stub, because she also destroyed that watch, meaning like, hey, you won't be able to track where exactly I was, and you won't see me when I'm coming. Because I love that Flynn was telling Connor, it's like, I'm gonna kill that bitch, so, because it's like, now that stub is potentially going to be left alone. Things are going to continue the way they are, but because at first, that's, like I said, I'm making this so much even more confusing, but it's like, with the way I'm kind of like breaking it down, or rather trying to let you understand my process of how I was thinking about it. Because I thought like, okay, I thought Flynn was like, this entire stub 1, we got to reset it in the sense of, we're going to let Charisse think she's won, and by killing this entire stub, then we'll move, but we're going to be resetting in stub 2 and trying to get those versions of us to, do what we need to in this fight. So that's what I'm trying to understand. Did Flynn like copy a version of herself to her peripheral in 2100, and that one is going to start going back in time? Or is the Flynn we saw meeting up with Lobear, where Lobear was like, oh, it's time to get started? Is that Flynn from 2032? Like, is that like did she copy a version? Because like, right, you can send data through a stub. So it's like, did she send all the stuff that was in that Alita left her there? Because it's like, right, how can that just, because there's no way all that data is just going to die with Flynn. Like, she had to back that up. So that's why I'm like, maybe she transferred all that data to a version of herself, or maybe she I don't know. I don't know how to interpret that, because it could just be like, hey, everything that Flynn is in this peripheral right now, and then I'm going to go back to 2032 in a new stub. Now my question then also becomes, well, what about stub 1 after all of this? Because Connor puts her down and she's counting down 10, 9, 8, thinking about her family, thinking about Tommy, thinking about Billy. And because that's why she didn't tell Burton, because she knew Burton would never go along with this. So now the question then becomes, once again, like, because a lot of the 2100 characters, all that's going to stay in line, especially with like the kind of post-credits thing we got, where Lev is sitting down with other Kleps, and they're kind of making it seem like, oh, we're upset with you, but they're like, no, that's good, but we got to basically go scorched earth on this. They're using the tree branch thing of like, hey, this tree branch is infected, you might as well cut and burn down the whole tree. And so implying like, right, Alita needs to be cut free, so does Wilf, probably including Ash, Ossian. It's like, yeah, you don't want us kind of coming after you and your family, because this is the only way we're going to continue doing what we're doing. Like, yes, everything has been, you doing what you did, keeping an eye on the Research Institute. In the long run, it was necessary, because it was about keeping our self-interest aligned. It was about making sure that our self-interests were still being actualized, and it was all still working on that front. The fact is also we didn't get Lev's father too, and it seems like he's going to be a key figure in a lot of this, especially with the whole Alita and Wilf thing. Now, her telling Wilf, like, right, take out the thing and you'll remember everything, because now she's remembered everything. Like I said, that's the interesting thing too, because like I said, I don't know if we're doing like stub 1, stub 2 type of thing, like, because it could easily just be like Flynn, because Flynn is dead, at least in 2032, like that's the whole point. But I just, in stub 1, but like I said, I just don't know if like, hey, she copied a part of herself to leave in 2100 to utilize the 2032 stub, or is that stub 2, I keep saying the 2032 stub, the stub 2. Is she going to, or is that the Flynn that's meeting Lobear at the end? Is that stub 2 Flynn kind of being like brought it up to speed about everything. But like she has this smirk across her face. I don't know if that's like a whole like, oh, she's under the impression like, oh, this is a sim or whatever, or Flynn just being like back and she's like, all right, it's time for us to fight back. You know, it's like it's time for us to blindside Charisse. Because there was multiple stubs that could have been open along the timeline and she has no idea. Once again, we're seeing that the second stub was still opened in 2032, but that might have been misleading for us too. Who knows like how far back Flynn could have actually opened that, but because it seemed like that was the date she was focusing on, and I think that's the one she clicked, but who knows. So I guess we're going to be bouncing back and forth between not only Stub 1 and the original timeline's future, but also the original timeline's future, Stub 1 and Stub 2. Because obviously they set up a lot of stuff in Stub 1, which are like, okay, like, but that might be also the thing of now with Stub 2, we've set up all these changes and like, so everything with Tommy might not go down the same way. Especially because also like, if it wasn't for their interference, Burton wouldn't be alive. So it has to be like a Flynn's like, yeah, like I'm taking a gambit on maybe she made certain changes to the timeline to make sure like, hey, Burton stayed alive and that what happened to Connor didn't happen. Like stuff like that. That's why I'm like, I don't know. Like that's where we get to the confusing part. Like obviously it's probably a lot easier for other people. Do explain it to me because I'm an idiot. So that's why I'm flip-flopping about. Like I don't know what that ending necessarily means for the future potentially. On whether we're bouncing between these two stubs, or is it we're just going to stay in. They made a whole point of it, so there has like I doubt we're like fully investing in Stub 2. Not unless that's the point, but like I mean that's the point of a reboot. Like right, you're gonna find yourself, as she kind of talked about, you find yourself in a black hole or dark hole, whatever she referred to it as from like a sim perspective of because you made a mistake early on in the game, you just find yourself getting killed over and over and over and over again. So I hope at the very least I'm making sense about what I'm trying to say. I didn't say it in the most elegant way. I didn't say it. I said it such a scattershot, like all over the place way. But I hope it's coming across what I'm trying to say of like my understanding of the ending. And I'd love to hear other people's understanding of it and see whether like whether we're in line or whether I completely misinterpreted the ending to this. At the time of me recording this, the Peripheral has not been renewed for a second season yet. Fingers crossed, hopefully that it will. I think the show at least has the benefit of it was a week-to-week show, so that probably kept the show, like, obviously, maybe in conversations longer. So, once again, a show getting dropped all at once, that's, once again, the kind of the Netflix issue. But, once again, it's not just Netflix, because Prime Video does that sometimes with stuff, too, but they flip-flop between that. Like, I know, like, The Boys is, like, they drop 2 or 3 episodes first, and then, like, the rest of it's week to week. I think Lord of the Rings was like that. I know, Invincible was like that. So I think they're probably shifting their model to kind of be an in-between. I guess it just depends on the show and stuff like that. But I do hope we do get a second season. I mean, the show goes on for a while longer. I don't know how much of the book story's been told so far, where we are in the grand scheme of things. But I just want however long it takes to tell the full story from the book. That's all I care about. So whether you're able to do that in 3, 4 seasons, whatever the case may be. But maybe it won't be until a potential season 2, the beginning of it, that we'll get a clear-cut answer, that I'll get a clear-cut answer, unless someone out there explains to me, once again, the ending explained or whatever. But like, I think it probably won't be until a clear-cut like premiere of the second season where we get a better understanding of like, right, this is where things currently stand in the aftermath of season 1's finale type of situation. So once again, fingers crossed, hoping that we get a second season, because I'm really digging this show and I love to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.